Okay, our next speaker is Itai Palti, also a dear friend, founder of the Conscious Cities movement and force of nature in and of himself, and a leader of design firm Hume, which advocates for research-based, empirically grounded, psychological and sociological approach to architecture and urban design. So, Itai?
Thank you for that introduction, and thanks everyone for tuning in as well. I have a presentation to share just as visuals to kind of go with what I'm about to say. I have 5 minutes, so it's not so much, but I'm going to try and fit what I can in there.
Itai, I'll just say one thing. I think we're missing one of the people on the panel, so it's okay if you go a couple minutes over.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so I think I'm going to build up on some of the stuff that Colin said. We have a pretty similar approach to the way we think about cities, so it makes sense that he said similar things to what I will. I'm going to start with first of all, saying that I think the urban issues that we are trying to solve in cities are very, post-pandemic, are very much the same urban issues that we were trying to solve before. And in that sense, I want to say that the relationship of nature and this discussion around it is something is a very long process that we've been part of as a society, and that definition of nature is part of that process. I started with a slide of inertia, and actually it was to remind us of social inertia. And I won't talk about the epidemiological aspects of the pandemic, nor how we should design for the virus to spread less so. But I do want to talk about the big pause that the pandemic has created, and that the opportunity that it presents is an opportunity because of a disruption to social inertia. The fact that we are stopping our daily lives in this manner is and should be a catalyst for reassessing our relationship with space, especially since we get cut off from a lot of spaces around the city. And with that, if we are aware enough of ourselves, also cut off of parts of our personality and parts of our identity. And in that sense, this big pause is something that can bring a lot of insight. Saying that, I'm kind of under no illusion that we are going to see these huge changes that quickly. And the reason for that is that when you look at our relationship with the environment and its role in shaping habit and behavior, we have already built our cities in a way that reflected our values, but will perpetuate those values. So when we go back into the city, those same habits that we built our cities for, we will automatically go into them. And then there is a danger of going into the social inertia of the very same mistakes that we made before. So the very first thing to say is, the awareness of where we are. Beginning with awareness of what a park is and how urban nature has defined our perception of nature. Parks evolved urban parks usually evolved out of areas of estates, large estates that were cordoned off or fenced off for hunting or enjoyment, and then swallowed up by urban development, and that's what put them in the center of the cities. The objectification of nature in this sense, that we can cut it off and we can own it, is something that is completely part of our narrative of our relationship with nature. Even when you look at the collective definitions of nature, I went to Wikipedia and dictionary just to go to the quickest thing. We have this aspect of, a park is set aside for human enjoyment, this setting apart of nature from city. And partly it's because of our approach to cities as, I would actually say our failed approach to cities in thinking that they are machines for efficiency. And nature being something that brings with it not just serendipity, but also risk and inefficiency, means that we've designed it out. And the question of what does it do to us when we've designed it out, I'm asking because when we step out back into the city, the structure that we have created to live our lives in will bring us back to where we were. And so you look at how these parks are surrounded by urban nature, and we get this dichotomy that Colin Ellard spoke about. Here you go and relax, here you go and work, and so on. And so we compartmentalize nature, which is part of this objectification process. This is another cute slide, I thought. But it's true that we go to parks and we go to nature for something. So we are still thinking of nature as something that we can harness for our own good, rather than being part of that ecosystem. So I want to give a comment about science-informed design, which is what I work in. Most of my work is at the intersection of architecture and behavioral science. And some of that work is creating the tools to understand how spaces affect us. And a lot of that effect is health effects, mental, physiological, cognitive. And so I want to talk about the double-edged sword of looking at nature through science. As soon as you quantify the health benefits of science, it becomes something that we go back to this relationship of objectification, that it's something that we deploy and we, distribute in a way that we distribute all other resources in cities. In some way, this is a good thing, because we're understanding that nature is healthy for us, therefore we have more respect for it, but it's actually a bit of a selfish respect. It's what nature can do to us, for us. And we can go about designing our city saying, we want more healthy people there, so we're going to put more parks there. That's maybe a step in the right direction. But the other edge of that sword is that we risk quantifying nature in that manner. And that takes us back and away again from understanding humans as part of an ecosystem. So my points that I want to kind of summarize is that I think in order for us to create a city that has that is integrated with nature and not separated from nature, comes from three things: awareness of how our habits and perception have changed, the translation of research and knowledge into something that's applicable for decision making, and that's something that we do in our work, so that people have evidence and numbers to understand why they should make certain decisions and investments. And lastly, and this is kind of more the narrative that I've been speaking about, which is consciously reshaping language, narrative, and identity. Because if we only look at the kind of, let's call it, superficial individual effects of nature, now they're not superficial because they're real health benefits, but in a collective nature, we can't necessarily look at individual benefits. We should be looking at what is the collective benefit for reshaping our narrative with nature. And the way we shape cities is going to reflect that narrative. That's me.